I did not want to report this story until a big actual source was reporting it. And Fandom Wire, you guys already know what I'm going to talk about, but Fandom Wire has announced that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are back as Spider-Man in the MCU for a Spideyverse multiverse crossover film with Tom Holland. And I'm going crazy right now. I just saw this report like a few hours ago. I did not want to talk about it directly. I wanted to write some notes, but I didn't have time to write notes, so I just want to do a straight reaction. And look, Fandom Wire is a pretty reliable source. They're not the biggest source, but, Hollywood Reporter, I would wait till they say something because they are the ones that announce Electro, being back, in the MCU. And, if you told me this 2 weeks ago that Tobey Maguire and Tom Holland are going to be back, I would have been like, yeah, no, they're not. No, they're not. Not in a million years will they be back. But ever since Jamie Foxx confirmed that he's coming back as Electro, I'm like, yeah. And especially when he showed that image of all three Spider-Man, ever since that, I'm like, yeah, he's gonna be back. I don't see them not bringing, it's like, so basically Sony, were mad that Jamie Foxx's Electro news got confirmed because let's face it, everyone was like, really? Because let's remember, Jamie Foxx, no one liked his performance. No one cared about his performance. He wasn't the main villain. He's not very memorable. He was, in fact, very forgettable. In fact, I talked to any Spider-Man fan, and when they talk about the Spider-Man villains in live action, none of them ever bring up Electro. They're always bringing up Doc Ock, Mysterio, Vulture, Green Goblin, and even Green Goblin Jr., and even Venom. But they never are like, oh yeah, Electro. Electro was pretty forgotten. I personally didn't really like Electro. I love Jamie Foxx as an actor. I love his performances that I've seen from him. But I will not lie, I didn't like his performance as Electro. Well, I liked it in a bit, but not really. And, when I heard he was coming back, my first thought was, yeah, multiverse. They're doing a multiverse. We already know WandaVision's going to begin that phase of multiverse. And then we know Doctor Strange's sequel, In the Multiverse of Madness, is legit going to be about the multiverse. Spider-Man 3, wow. Fandom Wire is the first big source to announce it. All the others were smaller sources. Normally when a smaller source says something, I don't really put too much to emphasis. I don't really... Look, when I see a small source announcing something, for the most part, I'm like, yeah, it's not going to happen. Because lots of times they announce things that never happen. Like, I think one time it said, Christian Bale to be in Batman vs. Superman back in like 2012 or 2013, somewhere around there, or 2014, I think. I remember seeing Christian Bale back as Batman in Batman vs. Superman, and then none of the big sources reported it. So I always decide to take it with a grain of salt. But Fandom Wire, they're not the biggest ones, like, the Hollywood Reporter or the bigger sources, but they are pretty good. They've said some things that actually do happen, and them announcing it just hyped me up way more. And I was putting this on my Snapchat, on Instagram. Quite a few people were like, it's really happening. One person was like, I already knew since last week. I responded by saying, this is the first big source to say it. So that's why the last few weeks I've been like, yeah, probably not. I also see this happening because they are planning on bringing Tom Hardy back as Venom in this film. Or probably not specifically Spider-Man 3. Maybe save it for another film. But they are planning on bringing back Tom Hardy for a Spidey film. They're also planning on bringing back Scorpion. We've never seen a live-action Scorpion, but the Scorpion we saw in Homecoming, he's going to be coming in this third film. And also, we know Electro for sure is coming back. That's one main thing. There's another character that has been reported, and that is the Green Goblin from 2002, played by Willem Dafoe in the Tobey Maguire films. And that one I don't see happening. That one, I know Fandom Wire themselves said it, but I really don't see that happening. Why? It's because, I don't know. It's just, he died in that film, and in a way, I'm like, I just don't see it happening. Like, I don't see Willem Dafoe wanting to come back in Spider-Man. I mean, he already is in Aquaman. I doubt he would return, although it'd be a big paycheck. But at the same time, I'm sitting there like, yeah, that's probably one of the things. I'm like, yeah, take it with a grain of salt. So for those that are hearing my report, or me saying what the report said, I would take this with a grain of salt. I am the biggest Tobey Maguire fan you'll ever meet. I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. I love his Spider-Man version so much. Spider-Man 2, for me, is one of the greatest films of all time. One of the greatest cinematic masterpieces of all time. And I do think it's the ideal superhero film. Not saying it's the best one, but I do think it's the ideal way to make a superhero film. And Andrew Garfield, I love his portrayal. I honestly am one of the few who think that Andrew Garfield's a better Spider-Man than Tom Holland. I know right now it sounds like I'm bashing Tom Holland, but I love Tom Holland's portrayal also. I love how they're all different. I love how they don't all feel the same, and I feel like I enjoy the difference between all three of them. However, I do honestly prefer Andrew Garfield's, although I will say Spider-Man Homecoming is a better film than both, Andrew Garfield films, but that doesn't mean Andrew Garfield's though. I apologize if I'm confusing people, but I love all the Spider-Man. They're all different versions. And honestly, Sony is planning on doing an Endgame style where this is going to be the biggest film that they've ever made. Like, let's agree with that. That's going to be the biggest film they've ever made. It's just $1 billion for sure. There's very few movies that I'll ever tell you that are for sure granted to be $1 billion hits. And one of them is a Spideyverse film. Can it make $2 billion in the box office? I really don't know. Like, I didn't even know if Endgame was going to make $2 billion until, like, probably after the opening weekend, I was like, yeah, it's probably going to make $2 billion. But before, I wasn't like that. Making $2 billion is nearly impossible in Hollywood. Like, there's only, like, 2 films, I think, that have reached that mark. Maybe even 3. I don't know. But making $1 billion, that one is a mark that I do see happening. Because, look at it. We have 3 completely different Spider-Man fan bases. There's always arguments about who's the best Spider-Man. That means there's completely different Spider-Man fans. There's the Tobey Maguire fans, there's the Andrew Garfield fans, and there's the Tom Holland fans. They're all very different. Tom Holland fans are people who are more MCU fans. Andrew Garfield fans are more like people who like darker stuff. And Tobey Maguire fans are the ones who grew up with Tobey Maguire. It's, for the most part, that's how it's like. I honestly love all of them. Tobey Maguire, of course, is my favorite. Of course, I think Tobey Maguire is the ideal Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield, to me, is a realistic Spider-Man. Tom Holland is more like the high school Spider-Man. But I do believe Tobey Maguire is the best one. And if they return him, like, my mind is just simply going crazy. When the big source, or when Sony themselves or Marvel announce this is true, or Tobey Maguire is coming back, I'm probably going to be crying. Because one of my dreams has been to see a Spideyverse film. My main dream is to see Tobey Maguire back as Spider-Man. Because after 2007, we hadn't seen him as Spider-Man again. And I feel like Spider-Man 3 left that sour note to what was the greatest Spider-Man of all time. Well, this is all subjective. If you're a Tom Holland fan, it's completely okay. I do not want to take that away. I'm just saying my opinion because this is my video and I just want to announce my opinion. So, yeah, the source is saying that we're going to be seeing a ton of characters all colliding. Apparently, it's going to be all these 3 Spider-Man helping each other in the universe fight all their biggest villains that they've ever faced. So, I'm assuming Jake Gyllenhaal's Mysterio might also return. And, I'm just, this I have to be grateful because this wouldn't have happened if, Marvel wasn't successful or something like that. Or I actually want to thank Into the Spider-Verse because there's no way before Into the Spider-Verse they thought of doing this. They maybe had said it as a joke. But after the success of Into the Spider-Verse, which I will say Into the Spider-Verse is the second best Spider-Man film of all time, and I do think it's the ideal film for Spider-Man fans, and I do believe it's a thank you note to anyone who's ever loved Spider-Man. I believe that film is the reason why they're doing this because it made a ton of money with characters that weren't very known. Because let's remember, Miles Morales wasn't very known before this film. Only comic book fans knew him. the general audience or just movie-loving Spider-Man fans didn't even know who Miles Morales was. And, it was a different Spider-Man that no one had ever heard of. And, it was a big risk to make because it just, to lots of people, it looked just like a kid's film. And then it turned out to be, it won an Oscar. Winning an Oscar is such a big honor. And I'm pretty sure they saw that and were like, imagine we had done this live action. Because, first of all, people are already, the general audience has already established that there's a Spider-Verse somehow. And that anyone can be Spider-Man. Second, there's a lot of Tobey Maguire fans out there. Even people who don't love comic book film fans, or people who don't love comic book movies or comic books in general, they know Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, so they'd be willing to see it. Tom Holland has a giant fan base. Andrew Garfield, as much as you guys don't agree with me on this, Andrew Garfield has a massive fan base. That's $1 billion guaranteed. They know what they're doing. Kevin Feige knows what they're doing. Sony knows what they're doing. They're planning on doing like an Endgame Spider-Man type film. I know I've been someone who says that I don't really love the crossovers as much. I prefer solo films. Solo films are my favorite ones, but crossover films, I love them too. And this one would just blow my mind, to the roof. Like, oh my god. It actually could compete with Endgame in the box office. I'm not even going to lie. Although with the current circumstances of, the whole pandemic, maybe, of course, it probably won't. Maybe. Because right now it's tough to tell. But, I apologize if I'm rambling on too much. I'm just too excited. This is a pipe dream that I never thought would be, realized. But, it's just something to get emotional over, If they announce it, if Sony tomorrow says, yeah, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield have both signed a contract to be in the upcoming Spider-Man film, or are going to be in the Spideyverse film someday in the future, then I'm going to be crying. I'm going to be like, no way. Like, if you guys could see my facial reactions right now, and you guys probably could if I wasn't too lazy to put a camera, you guys would, be seeing me like going all crazy, because in my videos I like to move my hands and move my head a lot, and it's just a crazy experience. And I hope this is all true. I know right now I'm hyping it up too much because I probably shouldn't, because there's a good chance this is all false. There's a good chance. I honestly don't know if it's gonna be on a Spider-Man 3 film, or they're gonna tease in Spider-Man 3 and then go into like another film and be like, yeah, Spideyverse. But I never know. I hope, I really hope it happens. And yeah. Well, thank you guys for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps a lot. It only takes a second to do so, and it really helps the channel a lot grow. So please go ahead, hit that subscribe button, and also hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Comment down below, what are your thoughts? Do you believe it's a pipe dream that's never going to happen? Or do you believe it's going to happen because, this is $1 billion guaranteed in the box office? What are y'all's thoughts? I want to know y'all's thoughts specifically. So yeah, comment down below what you guys think about this, and thank you guys for watching, and peace.